Ne rifillojmë programin tashmë me një moment të prezantimin e projektit DES të Muzeut të Artit Islam në Tiranë. Kemi kënaqësinë të ftojmë në podium arkitektin Hernandes nga studioja ndërkombëtare Casanova and Hernandes Architects, I cili do të na paraqes vizionin arkitektonik dhe konceptual të këtij instituti të së artit. Faleminderit.
Hello, good evening. Well, first, I'm really happy to be here, always. I'm very excited because it's a very, very special project, I think, for me, especially, I think for the city of Tirana, for the whole country. I think I will start presenting, next, please. Well, basically, my job is to create teams, multidisciplinary teams, where we collaborate and we create renovations or regenerations or reconceptualizations of existing museums. But also we create sometimes new museums. And we have to understand a new museum is not only a building with a collection, it's an institution. And that is even more complex than a simple project of architecture. Today I will explain the Islamic Art Museum. It's a museum that has two main components. One of the components is a beautiful collection that is created by the Konaki Institute and together with a group of experts, researchers, passionate about Islamic art. And the other component is the Toptani Sarayet house, that is a beautiful example of Ottoman architecture. Very delicate, in my opinion, a beauty that should be preserved like it is. These two components need certain kind of, please back. These two components need some kind of glue to put it together. And in this case, the glue was the Prime Minister that has a brilliant idea to put things together and to create some coherence between these artifacts. I'm going to explain first the master plan. I think it's a problem with the slides because it goes very quick, but you have to go back. I will say next. It will be easier. I will say next. Back. There are problems with no pointer. Okay, I will start explaining the master plan. The master plan has two main buildings. One of them is this Ottoman house that is called Toptani Sarayet. And the other building is going to be built in the master plan, is planned to be built in that area in a way that it's going to be a modern building. And the Sarayet house, the intention is to renovate the house, to restore the house, and to keep it like it is, like a jewel of Ottoman architecture untouched, and then present it like a sculpture in the city. This house is very old house. It's first category building. It's a monument. It's very difficult to make interventions inside. And the intention from the very beginning is to create the minimum intervention. So it's not possible to create mechanical ventilations or machinery, heavy machinery inside. So the intention is to protect it as much as possible and to create a showcase for a beautiful collection. So in a way that the Ottoman architecture, Islamic art collection should dialogue and to create a kind of single unity. But to solve all the problems needed for a contemporary museum, a contemporary institution, we need a new building. That is what is proposed in this other building next to it. So this pavilion, we call it Katim, Pavilion or Katim building, has one of the most important things of one museum, that is the archive. The archive is the most important, I always say, more than an exhibition, the archive is the most important thing. Why? Because the archive is, the goal of the archive is to collect and to preserve the cultural heritage. And that's the most important thing. And even more to continue collecting and preserving cultural heritage. Of course, in this contemporary building that is here, the next important thing will be the research department. So we need to investigate, to continue digging in the history of Albania and Islamic art and to understand all these layers that are not visible right now. And once we have the archive and the research, we need to show to the people to make educative or educational workshops. For instance, we need to make exhibitions, temporary exhibitions. We need to create performance events, a lot of things that are related to that. But I always insist the most important thing of a museum is the archive. The third component you will see between these two buildings will be the public space. The public space, this area is going to be under a big transformation. It's for years, but now it's even bigger because right now is the construction of the new National Museum. In one part of this kind of large plot will be a new tower here, public space around, and in our master plan, the idea is to throw down all the walls in this area and to connect all the public space of the city in a way that from here we can walk, or in the future, visitors could walk to the National Museum, to Skanderbeg Square, or even to walk to other beautiful Ottoman house that is going to be transformed into the Besam Museum. And next, well, here you see the plan of the area and the large transformation, because instead of these kind of walls and partitions, will be totally circulation, and one of the goals of the project is to expand the public space. But to expand this public space is also important to give some function. And the function in this area we think is going to be related with Islamic art. So in a way that the museum, the activities of the museum could be developed in the public space, like this event right now. So right now we are making a lecture in front of the house, but in other occasions could be kind of performance, a movie, outdoor exhibition, other kind of events that the museum wanted to do. Next to the two components are, one of them is very interesting. This house is called Toptani because it was designed, was created by this person here, is Abdi Toptani. That is an interesting person because came from a very influential family that is related with the construction of Tirana. And at the same time, this family was related with the Ottoman Empire. And his father, for instance, is Kaplan Pasha Toptani. We have a monument, we have an element here in the square. So this family, we can see this family transition between Albania related with the Ottoman Empire to this person that is in this picture down, that was one of the persons who signed the independence of Albania. So we can see this transition from the Ottoman Empire to independent Albania. And that's great interesting narrative for the museum itself, to relate historically the collection and the building. Next, please. On the other hand, the new building is a contemporary architecture, and it's inspired in first term by the Katim, because it's a symbol. This used along the history of architecture in Islam, but also the facade is inspired by geometry and the patterns, and it's one, in similar way to calligraphy, is one of the lines of Islamic art that has been evolving and evolving during centuries. I'm personally fascinated by these patterns and this repetition because it has relation with mathematics and the relation with God. So there are a lot of layers of understanding in that, and in that way also we relate with contemporary architecture, working with transparency, with opacity or translucity. On that way we can control the light, or we can control the views over other buildings. So on that way we can create spaces that they are at the same time contemporary spaces that we need for exhibitions, but linked to some tradition and the concept and the content of the building. Next, please. Now it's important to reflect about identity. So here, for instance, we put the two images talking about this, what is the identity of this building or this institution. In my view, one part, this building is linked into the past, to the history. And that's important because we have to research more and even to take out more layers of the history. But on the other hand, we have to deal with modernity, with the present, and even with the future. That's why the other part of the building is more related with the education, for instance, or presenting exhibitions, or presenting contemporary programs that is attracting to a modern audience. The two parts are very important and should be synchronized. Another part of the identity of the project is the name of the project, how we name this institution. Our first concept was to call it Islamic Art Museum and to call it IAM. IAM is an acronym that is talking about, well, first is something short, something simple to remember, and in English means I am. But I think it's related with in my view, with what is important in this project is about identity, is to know who you are. And I am could be related with many sentences, like, for instance, I am Albania, and it's reflecting about the historical past and the cultural heritage of Islamic culture in Albania. But also something that I heard for two speakers today, that is, I am Europe, because Europe has a strong component of Islamic culture. And in certain way, I think Albania and this museum could be a link to bring this identity and to show to the audience and other leaders in Albania, in Europe. And of course, I'm part of a world community that is more the link with the Arab goal or with Islamic culture of many countries around the world. Next one, next. Now we can see here the exhibition. This is I will show the two buildings. This one is more the restoration of this building. So the idea is to, of course, this building has passed for many functions. I was been from an institutional building till a restaurant. And in this process has been severely damaged in many parts. Well, our restoration project tried to restore accurately the part that they are still original, and to investigate and to bring back parts that were important from the Ottoman building. Among them is for instance, the Hammam, that is in one part that is still, we can recover the Hammam and we can show the function. So the house could talk to the public, to the audience, how was an Ottoman house and how was the life in that moment. Next. Well, in the building, we are setting a series of, we are preserving the structure of the building, of course, and the rooms. And then we set the collection, this beautiful collection of the, that we have now in the institution. One very important thing is to organize objects and to put objects together to create narratives. Of course, each object has a narrative for itself and tell very interesting stories, as you can see in this kind of a small brochure. But when you put objects together, we can create even more interesting or more complex narratives. Here, for instance, we are putting together the sacred and then uniting calligraphies and writing, understanding how the writing was important in the Islamic art. Next, please. This is, for instance, related with the objects that are related with the religion and the rituals. Next, please. This is the domestic, how the Islamic art passed to the domestic artifacts, and everywhere in the Ottoman house could be this relation with Islamic art. Next, please. This is the house itself that could talk in many different ways. So this is a construction in adobe that we intend to show how is the construction of these historical houses, or the construction of the Hammam, for instance, by recovering that, but also all the furniture, cabinets, everything in this house has an history, and I think it's worth to tell to the audience. Next, please. But also, if we think about this neighborhood, this was the place where the city of Tirana started to grow. So here was built the first mosque, the first bakery, and one hammam. So from these three buildings that they were located near here, start to grow the bazaar, there were madrasas, a lot of historical buildings related with Islamic art and culture. So yeah, in that sense, the building also can talk about the environment. This is, for instance, an important chapter that could be the Islamic culture in Albanian society, because it's not only to talk about Islamic art, in my opinion, it's also what's the influence of Islamic art or Islamic culture in Albanian society. And here you can see in 3 lines, 3 basic periods. The first one is the introduction during the Ottoman Empire, how the Ottoman Empire introduced or cohabited in that moment the Islamic religion and the Islamic culture with other cultures. The second one is more the independence, how in certain moment it started to be independent movement, but at the same time Islam has an important role that you can see in this first image of the double eagle with calligraphy. So means it's something interesting to reflect. And of course there is a third sad moment where during dictatorship, there were a persecution of the religions, and then mosques were damaged, destroyed, all these chapters of the history of Albania and the history of Albanian society, I think could be well documented with elements of the collections and could be organized in narratives. Next, please. Well, it's the same with certain visual arts, architecture, poetry. There are a lot of layers. Next. Well, the exhibition then, now going to the exhibition design, the walls of the building and the architecture is preserved, and the exhibition design is concentrated in certain elements that are exhibitors, where we show just series of artifacts. Each artifact has a narrative, a story to tell. All of them, they tell a main chapter of this thematic explanation. This is, for instance, related with the city of Tirana and the growth of Tirana and the Islam and how it was related in terms of architecture. And at the same time, there is another layer that we found interesting, that is with audio guides, we can have a different narrative. And this narrative is related with personal stories of the objects. Even if the object is telling one story, I think many of them, they are telling personal stories related with the people, the owners of the objects, or historians, or many different persons that with 50 objects, each one is going to tell us one story. That's why this narrative starts with the idea of I am this person, I am, for instance, Iman Hoxha, and I want to tell the story of this object. Next, please. This is, for instance, the rune of calligraphy and Quran. In this case, in the previous one was more, we had to use technology like video mapping and presenting projections to understand the context. In this case, the object should speak for itself, so it's no need for any technology. And then we try to put the concentration in the artifact itself. Next, please. This one is, for instance, religious artifacts. Next, please. This is, for instance, the reconstruction of one of the rooms existing in the building. At the moment, we have, it could be quite possible to preserve and to make the restoration of ceiling and the cabinets. And the idea of the project is also to combine with furniture according to that moment in history. For instance, this room aims to recreate this Oda from 1840. The building was created was designed and built in 1833. So this room is exactly a few years after his construction. Another similar room that we have in other part of the building will be related with the year 1935, before the communism and before destruction of the heritage. So in that way, you can even see in the building different moments in the history of how the house was transformed, and how was the life in these moments of history. Next, please. This is, for instance, in relation with recitation, the chants, the Sufi chant, and the music, and how much influence Islamic art and music in Albanian music. Next, please. Or even, for instance, objects, dresses, costumes, like they use. We have some of them in the collection from imams or from important people on the history. But also it's interesting to understand how this culture was transmitted to the traditional costume, and how we differentiate today between the Catholic and the Islamic custom in Albania. Next, please. This is about the new building. This is what I try to communicate about the importance of the archive. This is the archive of the National Museum of Photography in Shkodra. And Luciana Bedeni, that is the director, I can tell, thanks to have a good archive, when he started being director of the museum, he has in his collection 490,000 negatives. And now he got, thanks to the museum, thanks to the archive, 100,000 negatives more for different collections. What does it mean? Investing in good archive and showing that the state is taking care of the heritage, encourage a lot of donors, a lot of people to donate to the museums. So this is one of the main goals in this museum. So to create a connective movement of people donating Islamic art and artifacts to the museum. Next. This is another part that is very in the line that we have seen before in previous presentations. In my opinion, Islamic art is not something dead, not something from the past, it's something from the present and something from the future. And we have to create a space in the museum for what we call contemporary voices. So people who are reflecting for topics that is interesting and is linking maybe tradition, maybe history, maybe religion, but always with contemporary society. Next. This is about the necessity in the new building to create workshops for education. That's essential. In my opinion, also for events like lectures and projections, and to show in a way Islamic art, something alive and something really interesting for the audience. So to attract people from Tirana and foreigners to see this museum. Next, please. And this is the possibility, what I told before, they expand these activities to the public space. Next, please. And this is the possibility to create a cafe or restaurant more in the halal culture or coffee or tea. So making the idea that the cafe is not really a consuming, it's more learning about recipes, about why this is made in this way or another way, and where it's coming, for instance, to Albania, this coffee culture. Next, please. And this is my last slide, that is more related with the potential of the museum and to understand the Museum of Islamic Art in Albania like an ambassador of Islamic art in two ways, I think. One of them is a way to connect with many countries. Some of them are for the Arab world, Islamic countries, or even contemporary art museums in Europe that they have similar collections. And then I think the idea to create a research group to make temporary exhibitions, to make traveling exhibitions, is one of the core objectives of this museum, because all this kind of material is going to be a kind of flow of information and exhibitions, and this building will be located, I hope, this institution, in the map of the world and in relation with many other countries and different cultures. So thank you very much. This is my presentation.